welcome to Versus Live. I'm Todd Anderson.
I'm Ross Merriam.
And we got some really sweet stuff for y'all today. Continuing our development of new decks for Ravnica Legion Standard. I'm having a great time, Ross. Just brewing decks and stuff. How about you, man?
Yeah, Ravnica is always a really great time, and it's been popular every time it's brought back, and I think it's because of the sheer number of options that exist when you have a multicolored format. There's a lot of fixing. There's a lot of different sweet cards that take a lot of effort to actually utilize and cast consistently because of the prohibitive mana costs. Mm-hmm. But with the mana fixing, you can usually make it work if you try hard enough, and you can sort of just make almost any color deck work.
Yeah, it gets a little dicey when you start getting to 4 colors, but as long as you have like a solid 3-color deck, I think as far as building your mana base is concerned, it's almost cookie cutter at this point. There are some concessions to be made to fit more basic lands, so you deal yourself less damage, have a higher chance of your lands entering the battlefield untapped, all of which is very important against aggressive strategies, which have been running around rampantly in the previous standard format in the form of Gruul Aggro as well as mono red.
Yeah, and those decks are, while they're not getting a lot of powerful new tools that at least I've seen, they are getting some help based on the fact that people are going to want to try these 3-color decks that deal themselves a lot of damage. So I'm not sure if they really need to gain a lot in order to stay competitive, because now they're going to have to be battling people that start at 16 or 14 life instead of starting at 18 life or 20, which just makes life a lot easier for them. There's also a new burn spell, the Sorcery Speed Lightning Bolt Spectacles. So maybe there's more of a burn heavy list that can be run. I know that there was already a sort of tier 2 burn deck in the previous format. That was Rakdos colored, so maybe that deck can do some damage. So I'm just excited to get the entirety of the set, which we should have by Monday, and start sinking our teeth into it, because there's always this sort of hesitance for me early on in preview season to start working on fully fleshed out decks, because I'm not sure what's going to change in a week when a new card gets previewed, and that might change how I want to build my deck, or might make a deck bad because it just can't answer something that is going to be a key threat in the metagame, something like that.
Yeah, I think the real thing to take away, though, is that we all understand at this point when we're playtesting and we're trying out this stuff, is we are not playtesting a deck right now. We are playtesting a card or 2 cards just to see how they feel, how they interact. And yes, the context of these cards and their strengths might change. For example, the Orzhov Sacrifice deck that you played the other day on Tuesday's Versus Live, you didn't really have a whole lot to do with the Afterlife mechanic other than just attack. Like you had one, Pitiless Pontiff as like your one major sacrifice outlet. And they recently just previewed another one that was just bonkers. 2 mana, 1/2, tap, sacrifice 2 other creatures. Your opponent has a sacrifice creature. You draw a card, and you gain 2 black mana. Talk about a gruesome menagerie engine. What the heck?
Yeah, and that could definitely push us more towards an aristocrat-style deck. And I said that I was sort of pessimistic about whether that kind of deck could work on Tuesday's show, because we lacked a lot of good sacrifice outlets that cost 0 mana. Mm-hmm. And while this one taps, you can't go ham with it and Judith and sort of combo kill someone out of nowhere. It's a super powerful card, and if you're able to play 100 Witness into it, the threat on turn 3 is gigantic. Like you can play a 1 or 2 drop and recoup that mana immediately and play something big to follow up after gaining some advantage. Mm-hmm. And then you can sort of keep doing that because of the Afterlife mechanic will leave you with some tokens behind. So your opponent is sort of looking there, they have to kill that thing on site because they can't really play creatures into it.
Right.
So that's definitely something we'll look at and hopefully get something fleshed out for next week.
Yeah, it really reminds me a lot of the card Skurzak High Priest, where it's not super easy to turn on, and there is some downside to trying to play your deck or build your deck around a card like it. And if your opponent is able to kill it, like maybe it deflates like your entire early start. But if you get untapped with it on turn 3, chances are your opponent is in a lot of trouble, which is pretty cool. And and I was really looking for some sacrifice outlets that didn't cost mana, and that one was certainly good. But let's move on to what we're doing today, because we don't have any Orzhov decks today.
Correct.
No, we had a straw poll on Tuesday. Y'all voted in each matchup which one was going to come back, except for the third matchup where I voted for Wilderness Reclamation to come back. Ross, what are you playing today and why?
Yeah. So I'm playing another Gruul list. I played a Gruul deck on Tuesday that was more focused on making Domri work. And
We didn't even cast Domri in that whole
yeah,
match.
never really drew it. And one of the things that stuck out to me while playing that deck was the combination of Growth Chamber Guardian, which is the 2-mana 2/2 with Adapt that finds more copies of itself when counters are placed on it, and Rhythm of the Wild,
Yes.
which is the new Fires the Yavimaya card. So with Riot, you're able to put a counter on it immediately as it enters the battlefield. That will cause the ability to trigger. You essentially get a 2-mana 3/3 Squadron Hawk.
Yeah, and that's insanely powerful from an aggressive deck to be able to translate one card into up to 4 threats.
Yes.
When your opponent is trying to 1/4 removal you to death with things like Shock or Lightning Strike, Lava Coil, this type of stuff, you get to apply up to 12 pressure for 8 mana over the course of like 2 turns. And honestly, that's just kind of bonkers to me.
Yeah. And it even lets you play effectively into Deafening Clarion, these early sweepers. If you go Llanowar Elves into Rhythm of the Wild, next turn drop 2 Growth Chamber Guardians on 4 mana, still have 1 left in your hand, and they sweep you with Deafening Clarion, you're not that far behind, even though you've lost 3 creatures, because 2 of them replace themselves.
Right.
And you still have Rhythm of the Wild on the battlefield. So.
Yeah, and I think Rhythm of the Wild is the key in that scenario, because Rhythm just gives every creature you play after that either haste or an extra +1/+1 counter if the card already has Riot. Yeah. And honestly, it's going to put a hurt on control decks one way or another, because either your stuff's uncounterable or it's haste or both. So
yeah, so I wanted to build the Gruul deck today to try to take more advantage of that synergy. So it's more low to the ground, base green. We got Pelt Collector as an additional 1-drop. No Adventurous Impulse.
Okay. I actually really like that in my Simic deck, which we also brought back. That's going to be in one of our later videos, not right now. Yeah, I just was a huge fan of Adventurous Impulse when you're digging for like 1 or 2 specific creatures. So, your deck is probably going to be pretty consistent today, but there's a chance that maybe we try out Adventurous Impulse in the future. I think that card is way undervalued right now.
Yeah, definitely a solid card. Not a card that a real low to the ground aggressive deck is that interested in, because you don't want to take the time away from developing your battlefield, but we saw it work really well in your Simic deck on Tuesday as a card to set up the synergies in that deck. So yeah, hopefully we see a little bit more of that. I'm also featuring 4 copies of one of the new Gruul split cards. It's a Thrash Threat. For first half is 2 Gruul mana, instant. A creature you control deals damage equal to power to a creature or planeswalker you don't control. So nice little removal spell. Mm-hmm. And the threat half is 2 red green sorcery, create a 4/4 green, I think, beast token with trample. Sure. So really nice to have your removal spell stapled next to a threat. So normally, like, those removal spells are really bad against control decks. Now you get to artificially increase your threat density even in game 1 in those matchups. Mm-hmm. And it fills an empty slot on the curve. There's not a lot of great 4-drops for a base green deck. Normally you see like Rekindling Phoenix in that slot, but the mana doesn't work as well for a double red card on 4. Now we get to put a card in that slot that doesn't need to be there, but is there if we want it to be, and increase our threat density against control. I think along with the Rhythm of the Wild, Gruul is going to be really well situated against control decks, and then you just have to figure out how to use the cheap green blockers and red removal to deal with aggro, which should be easy enough.
Yeah, that card works pretty well with Gruul Spellbreaker as well, right? Because on your turn it has Hexproof, so you get to play it with a removal spell to shoot down something. So that's something to keep in mind. Also, just any Hexproof threat in general, probably pretty good with that, because it acts as a pretty sweet removal spell that also can translate into a 4/4 later on if removal is not really what you're in the mood for.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, it curves pretty nicely with Rhythm of the Wild too, right? You just get a 4/4 haste or 5/5 for 4 mana.
Exactly, the turn after. So definitely liking Gruul right now. And unfortunately, Domri doesn't fit that well when you have Rhythm of the Wild and Thrash in your deck, so that 2 non-creature spells that reduces your creature count. Mm-hmm. So I'm trying a deck that's a little bit more flexible in the way it's built and the way it can sideboard by cutting Domri and trying out the other Gruul cards, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay. From my side of things, in our first match today, I'm going to be playing Jeskai Niv. This deck is similar concept to what we've seen before. Things like Treasure Map, ramping out Niv pretty early on. Usually you have something like Dive Down to protect it. We also have some Spell Pierces and things of that nature. Generic spot removal with Lava Coil. But the things that I'm trying out that I wanted to really stress was I want to try out the Deputy of Detention. This is a 3-mana 1/3 Zori's Colors that effectively just gives you a detention sphere. And when you're playing a deck that already has dive down, I think that playing a card like this is a little bit easier, and it doesn't put you under as much vulnerability. Now the problem with this is that we're actually not playing Deafening Clarion in the main deck, so I think we're going to be looking to probably side in Deafening Clarion and side out Deputy of Detention in more aggressive matchups. But it's serviceable in game one against the aggressive decks, especially when you have dive down, especially against
Growth Chamber
Guardian, which can be pretty problematic. But against matchups where something like Deafening Clarion would be dead or bad, we actually have this 1/3 that can hit Search for Escanta. It can hit
Treasure Map,
Fairy. Right. A number of really problematic permanents with this counterspell backup and dive down. And we're already heavily incentivized to play dive down because of Niv Mizzet, and we want to protect it with the treasure map with that turn 5 nut draw. So I am very much looking forward to see how it works in there. The other new card we're playing is Warrant Warden. Warrant Warden is the split card that is the front half of Azor's Charm, which is put an attacker blocker on top of your the controller's deck. And then the 5 mana portion is create a Sarah Angel. It's blue, but you create a Sarah Angel for
At least it's not Golgari.
Sure. I don't know. I don't know why you do this to me.
The old jokes.
All right. Well,
it's an old meme, but it checks out.
So that is the matchup we're going to be playing right now. We're going to do Jeskai Niv versus Ross's Gruul Aggro. Let's roll dice.
Before we begin, I would like to say we had one comment from Viper12 Skies, and he said, Ross, if you mold a 0 and win, they will buy you courtside tickets to see the Jazz. I'm
thinking about which of my decks is most likely to win on a mold of 0.
Well, we could also just at the end of the broadcast, before we actually sign off, we'll just try it once.
Let's do a challenge game.
I'll just let you pick your best deck and my worst deck. We'll just see what happens.
Does that sound good, Viper? As long as
Viper agrees, that's fine. And I swear I won't concede. Ross has to beat me, okay? And this is for Ross. I know he wants to go see the Jazz. His eyes just lit up. That's what I want y'all to know. All right, I'm going to legit mull and everything, though, so if I mold a 5, I'm going to show y'all each hand. But let's go ahead and roll dice, and we'll take a couple of questions if y'all have any. 7 versus your 8. You'll be on the play.
A hard 8.
You want to mold a 0 on the play, or?
No, I think I'll take 7.
All right.
Viper says that sounds good.
Cool.
Okay.
The odds are very low, but... It's okay, though.
The stakes are very high.
Yes. All right. Well, my hand's okay. I don't know about yours.
My hand looks good.
All right. Yeah.
I'm on the play. I've got the combo.
That's a good one.
So a question from Doubt of Buddha. Of the new cards, which will you think will be the most format defining?
I mean, that's pretty tough, but I think Rhythm of the Wild has a very good chance of doing some
my ears are burning
stuff.
Got the old Rhythm of the Wild on turn 2.
Yeah, that card is gross. For me, I think Wilderness Reclamation, if I can get it to work, should be nuts. But it's just a mana generator, right? So you have to figure out a way to use that mana. Chemist's Insight was always like the one that popped in my head immediately. But the cool thing about it is that it also works with lands that have special abilities. Like even something like a Daughter of the First Four, you get to just generate an extra 1/1 each turn. But when you start pairing it with things like Escanta the Sunken Ruin or Primal Wellspring, it gets pretty disgusting. And that's literally the entirety of my article this week. So if y'all want to check that out, just went up on StarCityGames.com today. Make sure you sign up for premium, get access to that, and a bunch of other great articles by Ross Merriam, myself, and a number of other really cool people.
It's kind of a tough turn to play because of the threat of Lava Coil and Warrant and Deputy of Detention. There's no real way for me to navigate around all 3 of them, but I think the best thing to do is to start on a Spellbreaker. And I'm actually going to put 2 counters on it. I don't think getting an immediate damage is as relevant as not dying to Lava Coil, but I guess maybe if Todd had Lava Coil, he would have coiled my Llanowar Elves. I think there's a decent chance he would have done that. Okay. I've changed my mind. I'm gonna make a 4/4 and attack.
And
It has hexproof.
It has hexproof, right?
'Cause it's my turn. Yeah. So
I'm gonna opt.
brings you to trying to hit Terminus here.
Yeah.
Okay, you get a 16.
Yeah.
I'll play a tap stomp and grind and pass.
I'm gonna play Deputy Detention because I don't think I can afford to take another big swing in the face. And your turn. If he kills it this turn right now, though, we're basically dead, which is unfortunate.
That was a good draw.
Really?
I already had the lava coil. I didn't have anything to play with it to further press my advantage. So
can we redo this my turn? Because I could have just played way different and not gotten completely annihilated.
Well, it's hard to replay now that you know I have lava coil.
Sure. Can I concede the game and then we rewind? Is that okay? Because I'm dead.
We're gonna make this a 4/4 with haste. Then I'm gonna play Growth Chamber Guardian. It has Riot from Rhythm. I'll put a counter on it. Find another one. Great. And I'll attack with these two for 5 damage.
Sweet.
Brings you to 11.
Yep.
And then I'll pass the turn.
Excellent.
Now I have a steady string of threats still. Todd's under a lot of pressure. Everything's going well.
Yeah, I'm dead.
All right, Ross, question for you.
Yeah.
Because you had talked about this on Tuesday, I believe. Ryuden asked thoughts on the Winged Salamander.
This is a card that was brought up by both Todd and me as the card that has a lot of strikes us as having potential for Eternal formats. And it's definitely a card I'll be trying out in Is It Phoenix and Modern. Whether or not it lives up to its potential, I don't know.
I'm in 9.
But definitely an interesting card for that purpose. And just as a flying man in mono blue tempo, it's probably not that bad. If you just wanted another 1-drop in that deck, it'll probably
Stop
adapt.
Shuffling.
Yeah.
You've been shuffling for 5 minutes.
I like shuffling.
Also, we have a poll going right now, thanks to the Tan and Grace, about who has the best beard. And Ross, you're currently winning 13 votes to 5.
Wow. I see how it is. Look, I actually have a haircut appointment later today, and I'm going to get my beard trimmed. Thank you very much.
Well, you don't even have a full beard. You shave the mustache. You have the Abe Lincoln.
Well, yeah. Abe's great.
Mm.
Abe's the babe.
His beard was not good. Well, he grew it at the behest of a small girl that wrote him a letter.
Well, neither is your
beard. You can't.
So hush.
My beard is great.
Look, all I know is whenever I kiss my wife, she doesn't like the mustache part. So I shaved that. But she likes the beard part, so I leave that. I don't even much like the beard, to be quite honest.
Okay, I'm going to play another Rhythm of the Wild.
Sure.
I'm going to thrash with the Spellbreaker on the Drake and crash in for 7. Brings you to 4.
No, I'm at 2. I took 2 from a shock.
You took 2.
I was trying to get a word in, but you were shuffling for eternity.
Oh, if that's the case, then I don't play the Rhythm. I just play another Guardian and get 2 more damage in.
Yeah.
I didn't have life totals correct. Todd was dead.
Yeah. My apologies.
We were talking about beards. I got excited.
We were talking about beards. No, that game, I don't know. I think that was a huge showcase, and not only the strength of Rhythm of the Wild, but also the Gruul Spellbreaker there in that scenario. Just me not being able to kill it with a Warrant Warden.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm supposed to do in that spot.
Yeah.
Like,
and you
just
saw
smashed me in the face.
I could have cast Threat on turn 3, which is the natural curve after playing Rhythm, but I didn't want to play into Warrant and just let you get the free removal spell. I also wanted to save the Thrash for potentially answering like a Niv Visitor or a creature down the line.
Right.
So I played the Spellbreaker. I made Warrant bad. If you had counter spells, they were never going to be good because of
Rhythm.
Rhythm.
Even if I had Deafening Claire on there, like the turn you cast Spellbreaker was still 4/4. Like,
yeah.
It's not even going to die. So like the Deputy there, I could have waited until turn 4 to play it with Dive Down Backup, and just on turn 3 went like hold up the Warrant Warden for a different creature, which is just going to have haste on the next turn. And then like another opt, but I was just in a ton of trouble. I don't know if there was a lot I could do outside of drawing Lava Cool and casting it on the Gruul Spellbreaker immediately.
Yeah. Turn 2 Rhythm on the play against the control deck.
Yeah, no, that was really good. That felt gross. All right. We're gonna take a short can we do 2-minute break?
Sure.
Okay. We'll do a 2-minute break just while we do sideboarding. We'll be right back for that. All right. right, we're back for sideboarding here. I'm not making too many changes, just going to be trimming these Spell Pierces for Deafening Clarion. Obviously, these have some targets early on, like Rhythm of the Wild, but I think I'm just going to try to grind through that, put up some defenses with things like Crackling Drake, maybe a fast Niv Mizzet via Treasure Map, and try to ride that to victory and kind of weather the storm that is Rhythm of the Wild. Deafening Clarion is going to help a little bit by containing these threats. I'm not sure how many I want. You would normally think, okay, it's in there for this type of matchup specifically, just bring in 4. The problem with that is that this plan with Rhythm of the Wild can go pretty big. Things like Carnage Tyrant, Vivian Reed, as well as just making his creatures into bigger than 3 toughness via the Riot mechanic, whether it's Rhythm of the Wild or creatures with the Riot mechanic themselves. He can play around Deafening Clarion quite easily, so I have to take that into consideration for sure. I also don't want to overload because I'm still trying to Deputy of Detention his stuff and use Dive Down to protect. So I'm just going to do this for now.
Notably, Deputy can answer Rhythm of the Wild, so be solid if you can do that. On my side, pretty standard anti-control plan. We're cutting our removal spells that are only removal. I know Todd does have Deputy, and we're going to want to kill that, so I'm leaving in all of my Thrash threats and relying on those. And then I've got some Crawl Harpooners in the main, and now some Vivians to help answer Niv Mizzet. And I think Zertok Goblin, well, this card hasn't gotten a lot of play. I do think it is a card with a lot of potential. Just split card, 2/2 haste, 2 mana 3, and Watch Wolf.
Yeah, dude, that's nuts.
Is pretty good.
I don't know why people are sleeping on that card. The first time I saw it, I was just like, what the heck?
That's good.
Yeah.
And then, but I do think it's our worst card in this matchup. Just doesn't match up that well against Deafening Clarion or even Lava Coil. Just just weaker than Pelt Collector, which is the other card I considered trimming.
Sure.
But got some Carney Tees, some Vivians.
All right, got any questions to Phil?
That we do. And one question for both of you on some of your choices in your deck today. Boulder Elf wanted to know, Ross, why no Regisaur Alpha or Ravager Worm? And Todd, why no Settle or Seal Away?
Do you want to start with yours?
Yeah. So this is a lower curve, more aggressive style of Gruul than what I played earlier this week.
Yeah, which did have Ravager Worm.
Did have Ravager Worm, and if you read my article from this week where I focused on Domri, I also showcased a Gruul Dinosaurs list that had Regisaur Alpha, Carnage Tyrant, Burning Sun's Avatar, a lot of good creatures to ramp into with Domri.
Yep.
So I think there's 2 ways to go. You can go really big with those kinds of creatures, and I do think Ravager Worm is quite good, and a card that we're kind of underrating right now. But I wanted to try a list with a bit lower of a curve to try to take it a little bit more advantage of the Riot part of Rhythm of the Wild to get multiple creatures down, keep it pumping them, and see how that worked. And so I'm topping the curve at 5. And while Regisaur Alpha is a possible card you can play in that slot, I think Skargan Hellkite is just the card you want. That mold of 5 mana, 4 power haste dragon has been so good, and the card is very good in a longer game. You just put a counter on it with Riot and then control the battlefield or start doming your opponent for 2. So that's the 5-drop I chose.
Yeah. From my side, the question was about Settle the Wreckage and what was the other
Seal
card?
Away.
Seal Away. So I think Warden actually just replaces Seal Away in a lot of these Azorius color decks. Especially ones that care about instant sorceries in the graveyard, your Crackling Drakes, your Niv Mizzets, and such. I think the ability to put something on top is just about as good as exiling it, especially if it's like an early creature that just scales worse as the game progresses. Like, you would like them to draw that for the turn.
Yeah.
You know,
if you look at a removal spell like Warrant and you think, well, it doesn't actually deal with the creature, which is what I'm playing the removal spells to do. But those early cheap removal spells, you're really playing to buy time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can trump the small threats as the game goes along, and if that's what they're playing on their turn 4, replaying their 2-drop, that's a huge win for you. So that effect has been historically very strong. And like I said with Thrash Threat, having your removal spell stapled to something that's relevant when your opponent is not playing many creatures is very helpful too. And, Azorius Charm fit that mold by just cycling when it wasn't relevant as a removal spell. This does the same thing with the Warden half.
Yeah, as far as Settle the Wreckage is concerned, this is basically a sorcery speed deck. We have some tricky, cheap stuff, but we're not Chemisters Inciting. We're not trying to play Explosion for a bunch. We are tapping out almost every turn, either to kill stuff or playing some threat that our opponent has to deal with, and usually holding up roughly 1 to 3 mana, somewhere in that range, to either protect or kill something. So Settle the Wreckage, obviously a fine card in a Jeskai control deck. This isn't really a Jeskai control deck. This is a Jeskai mid-range deck that kind of looks like a control deck, plays similar elements.
That's like I would call it a tap-out control deck. There's
Sure.
two styles of control. You can either sit back and be reactive with counter spells and instant speed removal and card draw spells, or you can be a little bit proactive and like slam a big threat after interacting with your opponent on the early turns, and you try to ride that threat to victory. And Niv Mizzet is exactly in that mold, so it makes sense to fit it in that style of deck.
Assume your hand is good because you haven't mulled.
Yeah, no, it is nice.
All right, lead off here with Howled Fountain, which conveniently turns on every land in my hand.
I have drawn the combo once again.
Also, Ross, what about Cinderlash in your sideboard?
That's the new enchantment that whenever your opponent plays a non-creature spell, they take a damage, and then you can spend 1 mana to Destructive Revelry.
I think that card is going to be more important in Eternal formats, where the first half comes up fairly often, as opposed to Standard. But maybe I'm wrong. And I prefer a card like Thrashing Brontodon that you play proactively and is a real threat in that slot. But if there's ever a deck, like the Is It Drake's decks, yeah, you can end up being a really big thing. Like still, then the front half of that is good against them, but they don't have enchantments you want to destroy. Like,
or just the Bant Nexus deck, maybe.
Yeah,
with the Wilderness Reclamation.
I could definitely. Oh, and it blows it. Yeah, I could definitely. That's a very good point. Hey. No, that's a great point. I think Cinderlash needs a very specific kind of deck in order to be the more relevant sideboard card, whereas Brontodon is just generically good and is always going to be base 3/4 and can come in against aggressive decks. But if those decks exist, then yeah, Cinderlash will be a real thing. But I'm not going to put it in my sideboard as the best one in a generic setting. I got a Spellbreaker here for you. I am going to make it a 3/3 haste and get it. Okay. 17. Pass. I think 3/3 haste is generally the mode you're going to want. Oh, just got punished. I'm bad. Yep. Should have made it a 4/4. I regret all of my life decisions. Why did I do that?
It's pretty bleak. Yes, wait.
Todd, as the resident teamer mage, do you see anything pulling you toward a teamer mid-range deck in the standard format?
Not really mid-range. I think that Simic has a really good argument for like a heavy creature-based deck that could potentially splash red for something like Rhythm of the Wild. But at the moment, I'm just all in on this Wilderness Reclamation if I'm going to be teamer. But yeah, I think there's definitely some tools there. I think the ++1 counter crossover synergies are really interesting and something that we're going to want to explore. Both modes? Definitely clearing for both modes. I'll gain 2 life, put you to 18.
Yeah, I'm at 18, you're at 19.
Yeah, your turn. Both modes? Oh.
I'm going to make this thing a 5/5 to play around another Lava Coil. Okay. And make it... Drake's also pretty close to being able to trade with it.
E-Man. Attack for 2.
16.
Your turn.
This entire game would have been different if I just made that Spellbreaker a 4/4.
No, I would just Lava Coiled it.
Would you have?
Yeah, you were tapped out.
You sure about that?
You had 3 mana and you were tapped out.
Okay.
On turn 3.
Yep.
It was a 4/4.
Okay. Those are true.
Am I missing something? I don't know what's going on.
Play another 5/5. Pass the turn.
Yikes. Okay.
What if I just...
Oh, sorry. In a turn, I'm gonna...
Opt?
Yeah.
What if I just Mutagenet Growth?
What?
It's a good magic card. I could put it on my deck.
Get out of here.
What would you done? You'd have been sad.
Would have been sad.
If I just stole one of your Howled Fountains and played a dive down out of your hand on my creature.
What are you talking about? Why are you like this? What is happening? All right.
So, Dying Slowly TV wants to know if if you think Enray's Forerunners, which is the Craterhoof Behemoth-esque card, will see play.
All right, so you take 3.
I mean, I doubt it, but maybe there's a.
I mean, no one thought Cranial Behemoth was very good the first time around until Brad broke it with Unbarrel Rights.
Maybe there's a Growing Rights deck that can play it.
Maybe.
That would be sweet.
Growing Rights of Ithlamar. We attacked for 3. Ross opted to not block because then I was going to crush him. Now my Deputy of Detention is going to get whacked. He's going to get his other Skargan Hellkite back. And then we're going to have a weird game after that. I'm not blocking. Take 5. I'm at 14.
Yeah, let's thrash the Deputy down. Make another 5/5. And pass the turn. This is actually threatening lethal damage because I can deal Todd 2 on the end step and then untap, do that again, and attack for 10. It's hard for him to attack with both Drakes here. It's Dragons versus Drakes. Dual decks.
Yeah.
But you have 7 cards in your hand, I only have 1. That doesn't seem fair. Todd, what did I just say?
Yeah, I know what you just said.
So, this suggests a warrant in hand. There's another Deputy of Detention. That's going to be bad news bears.
Or just play it.
Yeah, you would have done that first, though.
Yeah.
Clarion for lifelink you would have done first. So, I think this is a warrant, which is really awkward.
It's a pretty good card.
But that does mean that I think blocking is better than not blocking, so let's block. You got 3, yeah, you got 3 in there. Do you just have 2 instants? Make your thing big. So that's going to make it a 7. So I'll deal this 2 before. Okay, you have 2 dive downs.
Okay. You're
I
gonna
take 5.
Yep. You're at 8. I'm at 14.
Yep.
Go.
Now I'm in big trouble in Little China.
I knew you were going to say that. After you said big trouble, I just knew it was coming. Maybe I didn't know it was coming. Maybe I was about to say it, but you said it too fast.
Now I'm pretty dead because I can't attack because I'm facing lethal. This would have been if Todd didn't have the warrant and just had the 2 dive downs and tricked me into it, that'd be a real good play. But it's sad to all.
Okay, no, I missed like 5 land drops and drew a bunch of cards.
But let's play some Bell Collectors.
Nice.
And pass the turn.
Those are great. Those are exactly what you want in this spot.
Yeah.
Alright, so you can still use Skargan Hellkite, so there's literally no reason for me to Clarion pre-combat. Because you're going to block, and then shoot me probably and let damage happen. And then post-combat,
I mean, if you can just play 2 spells, I'm dead. Right? Oh, no, you need 3 spells.
8. I mean,
Yeah,
I have
so.
5 things in the yard. I can only play 1. Attack.
Block.
Fast forwarding.
Shoot you for 2.
12.
Yes. So you're 12 and I'm going to 3?
No, I'm gonna.
I think you just
I'm
warrant.
gonna kill you. I'm just gonna put this on.
Yeah,
top.
you just warrant this, and then I have
Yeah.
no outs. So.
Yep.
I guess like I put you to 12. Even if you had nothing, I could Skargan as a 4/4 haste, make these 2/2s, and I'd only have 8.
No, I was gonna wild for 1 also.
Sure.
I had it.
I am deads.
All right, this sweet game 2. I think on the draw for game 3, I'm gonna board in the other 2. What's it called? Deafening Clarions. What do I want to cut? I know I'm gonna cut a treasure map because if I draw 2 of them, it's not great. And I'm pretty sure I have 4. I'm gonna cut a Teferi and treasure map. Just lower my curve a little bit. We have a lot of top end stuff with the 4 Crackling Drakes, 3 Niv Mizzet, bunch of Teferis and stuff, bunch of treasure maps and stuff. All right, question or 2.
Yeah, Histeus wants to know what's your opinion on the strongest week 1 deck?
I mean, we don't even have the full set, dude. I know what cards that I like a lot. I like Kaya's Wrath. I like Wilderness Reclamation. Personally, I'm a huge fan of Theater of Horrors. I think that card's sweet. But I mean, literally last night we got like 2 new mythic rares that we hadn't seen yet. That both we haven't even had time to think about them, let alone play with them. There was like the ooze, was it something progenitic ooze that makes more oozes, and I don't know.
I'm gonna bring some lava coils back in, help deal with these drakes.
Yeah,
cut some of these spell collectors.
Biogenic ooze.
Yeah, biogenic ooze. Card seemed cool.
Do you think the mono red deck with 12 bolts would be a good place to start?
I mean, that deck doesn't even play all the bolts it can. So I don't know why people are freaking out about getting an extra lightning bolt when they don't even play 4 wizards lightning half the time. So just gonna say,
but in modern burn, getting another 1 mana bolt seems great.
That's probably true. It does seem not bad in modern. I actually think that just the cool thing for red is getting access to Theater of Horrors, which is another copy of Experimental Frenzy almost. If you have like, 5 or 6 or sometimes 7 copies of your best card, like that's just makes your deck significantly better, and it functions very similarly to Frenzy, which I like. So I don't know. I think week 1 people are going to experiment a lot with 3 mana or 3 color decks, and they're going to get absolutely crushed by mono red or red with a light splash, or they're going to get crushed by, tried and true stuff. Because, we've had 4 months now to tune Golgari, and like we can keep tuning it to beat like an aggro deck like the Gruul deck or whatever. Card chart already handles like most of the Azorius builds, or helps in that regard when combined with like duress and stuff. So I think it's gonna be hard for a new deck to really break into the standard format unless it is busted. We're gonna have to see. Wait and see.
Okay, I'm good.
Once again, Hallowed Fountain turning on all the rest of my lands, which is great. I'm gonna keep. I thought you cut those.
Cut 2 of them. First one's still good.
It's true.
Let's make a 2/2 haste and mush for 4.
That's a good start.
16. Pass.
Mm-hmm. So I have a choice here. I think I just lava coil the Pelt Collector in case you draw something to pump it. Like, if I had a Warrant Warden, I could potentially target this, because hitting this with Warrant Warden is a little bit better, because this can have haste and keep coming in.
Bring it to 14.
Yeah.
So play a 4/4 Spellbreaker now that Todd has used the lava coil.
Well, Santa's not really working out, and I gotta kind of hope for the best. But it's probably gonna get coiled, and then I'm gonna get smushed.
Nope.
That's tight.
Oh, shock to 18. Play a Llanowar Elves and a 3/3 Zertog Goblin.
Okay.
So, haven't really had a lot of good draw steps so far with the sand, but
we're gonna main phase this opt because we need to draw land.
That's a good sign.
Well, we haven't hit a land on all of our draws. Go. I think there's very little reason not to attack with this.
Yeah, I was thinking about warrant, but you just got to warrant this one, so it doesn't really make a difference.
Yeah, I'm gonna warrant this one.
Yep. It's no bueno. Pass.
Well, he's drawing another Zertog Goblin, so that's really good news for me. Play this tapped, play a Crackling Drake. Or I'm gonna play Drake first, but
yeah.
Your turn.
I'm pretty dead this game. I've drawn 3 lands and Llanowar Elves as my draw steps.
And this is one of the reasons why I really like Warrant. Just being able to stall that Goblin right there that not only takes care of the creature on the battlefield, just locks up his next turn.
Yes.
And I don't think I can lose unless I attack. I think if I attack, there's a chance I lose. So I'm just going to say go.
So I think we have to start here with a, the card, Vivian Reed.
Yes, Vivian would be quite good here.
It would be okay.
I guess it would kill Niv, but force me to attack next turn. Was it Vivian?
Vivian is great, but have you tried drawing Stomping Ground on turn 7?
What makes you think this is turn 7? Oh, because you have a missile land drop. Is that the joke? All right. Draw, trigger. Sure, shoot this one. Let's go op, trigger. Shoot this one. Look. Keep.
Shoot this one.
Shoot again. Teferi minus on. No, Teferi's going to plus. Sorry, that's stupid. The game is over. I'm just going to draw a card.
Deal me one.
You for 1.
17.
Hit you with this one.
12.
Untap these 2. Your turn. Are you dead?
I'm very dead.
That was okay. So I just want to point out, Deputy Detention was a removal spell there, but the body didn't matter. If this was just like
it mattered the turn it came down. Right?
Oh, it did block. Yeah. No, it actually prevented some damage. No, yeah. You're right. I'm sorry. So there. I was gonna say that like I didn't attack or block with it, but that's just patently untrue. So I was more so gonna point out that I felt very afraid of you killing it for like multiple turns. If you had done that, I think it would have. At the very least, it would have changed the texture of the game. But yeah, no, you're right. The body ended up mattering, blocking. Okay. All right. Start with your deck. Let's go.
So we saw how powerful Rhythm of the Wild is in game 1.
Yep.
I think game 2 would have been closer had I made Spellbreaker a 4/4 on turn 2 or 3 when I cast it, and then that game 3 is just I draw lands. That happens. So still impressed with the Gruul cards. And I think that game pivots pretty quickly too if I just have a removal spell for Deputy or some big card to follow up with, like if I draw Vivian, or I draw for the Crackling Drake, or if I draw Carnish Tyrant, maybe I can start doing something like even Dragon might have been good enough as a 5/5 that can put some work in.
At the very least it can face off against like Crackling Drake if you cast it on time, and I think you hit your 5th land before I hit mine, so like I did miss the land drop. I main phased and then I just drew into
1, 2, 3. You handled that, and then I didn't draw anything to follow it up. This is classic. This is Magic.
Yeah, that's fair.
Got to keep the pressure on. That's why you bring in those high impact threats. So not too worried about that third game, and game 2 I think is on me. So I'm going to take most of my lessons away from game 1, where
you just clown shoes me.
Yeah. Just going to forget the other 2 and move on.
Rhythm of the Wild, I think just your deck just operates on such a higher level when you play that card that I think maybe you just need to find more consistency. But the card is so unique in what it does that I don't know if that's possible. Like,
no, I don't know if I said this on camera on Tuesday or I said it to you after the show was over, but in order to make Riot an interesting mechanic, they have to develop the cards such that the +1/+1 counter is relevant versus haste. Normally, haste would be significantly better and is generally the better option. But that makes for an uninteresting mechanic if you don't take care to size the creatures to the point where that extra counter is relevant. Mm-hmm. So if you look at all the creatures that have Riot, like the difference is always interesting. Even on Zerta Goblin, 2/2 haste versus 3/3, it's going to dodge shock against red decks or similar removal. Maybe it'll block better as a 3/3 against defensive decks. The same with Growth Chamber Guardian. Difference between a 2/2 and that one doesn't have Riot normally.
Well, once you Riot it, like obviously you want to kind of chain it off or whatever, but there are instances where just like waiting a turn to put 2 counters on it is important because making it a 4/4 so it dodges. Clarion is great.
Gruul Spellbreaker. A difference between a 3/3 and a 4/4 gets it out of Lightning Strike and Deafening Clarion. 4/4 lets it attack into Drakes, things like that. That's relevant. Ravager Worm, once it becomes a 5/6, now it can rumble with Lyra or Niv Mizzet. and fight those, but you lose haste in order to do that. So if they're sizing the creatures that have riot, which is a lot of the good Gruul creatures, in a way where the +1/+1 counter is relevant, but you still really want haste, the second instance of riot is super valuable. And that makes Rhythm of the Wild even better than you would otherwise think, because the mechanic of riot naturally pushes them to develop cards to where that extra +1/+1 is super relevant. The same way in Magic Origins, because of the Renown mechanic, if you drafted that set, I thought Veteran Sidearm was one of the most underrated cards, because that extra +1/+1 was super relevant. It had to be in order to make Renown relevant.
Right.
So that's just the way the entire set is designed. So that cascading effect makes Rhythm of the Wild within context even better. So that's the Gruul card that I'm most excited about. And you saw the power of it there in game 1.
Yeah. I would have loved to see a little more with was it Threats and
Thrash Threat.
Thrash Threat. That card seemed pretty interesting. Just like the idea of a 4-mana 4/4 is not overly exciting, but when you attach it to a potential removal spell, most of the time, like you cast Thrash like at least once, maybe twice. I know you did in one of our fun games before we started.
I did it in game 1, and I had the option to cast it for Threat early. If you ever played it in a different way, I would have played the Threat half. So if you go back and watch game 1, you didn't see it, but it was in my hand the entire game, and it was great the entire time, even though I didn't cast it until the very end. I cast it the turn I killed you. It was like, kill your blocker, play a haste threat. But if you had ever played differently, and instead of playing a creature as a blocker, like a Crackling Drake, had ever just played some removal spells, I could have played it as a 4/4 haste with Rhythm of the Wild. It would have been excellent. So that card was also impressive in that first game.
All right, for my side, Jeskai stuff. Obviously, Niv Mizzet and Crackling Drake kind of shown through the rest, which I'm not super happy about the way that I built it, because we're trying to showcase these new cards. But I do want to say I thought Warrant Warden was spectacular. Obviously, it's going to be good against these like creature-based decks, ones that are attacking a lot. But just the sheer fact that in one spot where I got to basically protect my life total pretty easily, and then also stunt your next draw, was just so backbreaking. And it's something that we haven't felt in a long time, or at least I haven't felt in a long time. And makes me really miss Azorius Charm, but pretty happy that it's kind of back.
Yeah, I mean, you're effectively able. It's almost like a 2-for-1, right? Like you're able to negate the attack for that turn, and then by the time you untap, that card got completely blanked. So my next draw step is also just going to be bad, and you basically cut me off of the last card that I would draw towards the end of the game, and put me off all the cards beneath it for a turn. That's just value that is really, it's hard to see just by reading the text on the card, but when you play with it, that card is really impressive. Yeah. And we didn't even get to see the Warden half, which is definitely going to be relevant in some number of games.
Yeah, and I agree completely. Like, in matchups, or not match, in situations where I'm like pretty low on resources, and I kind of have to like swing for the fences, like a 4/4 Flying Vigilance is it. Just putting up that giant blocker, like kind of crossing your fingers. But I think where it's really going to shine is that it is one of those cards that in game 1 it's going to be an all-star, no matter what it is. It's either going to be the best removal spell you have access to early on, or it's going to be a threat. So this card is never going to be dead, so you're never unhappy to draw it, no matter what the matchup is. And I think that that's important when you have decks that range from hyper-aggressive to do nothing on my own turn,
And even in a matchup like this, I could see the Angel half of the card, or Sphinx half, Warden, doing some good work. Like if you play some interaction early, keep your life total high, and slam a Crackling Drake, and then I Lava Coil it, and I have some other small creatures I'm getting in with, and you just follow that up with a 4/4 flyer, suddenly I'm out of removal, and now that 4/4 stabilizes the battlefield, maybe sets up a Teferi, or gives you time to dig for a Niv Mizzet. It's going to come up. So that's just the nature of split cards. When you have a split card, it naturally raises the floor of the card to whatever the maximum of the floor of either half is.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that is hard to see because just by reading the card. But when you play it, it comes out. So that's a card that I expect to see as a staple, really.
Yeah. Deputy of Detention. This one is a little harder to evaluate. We've obviously had Detention Sphere in the past, and it was phenomenal. A way to clean up tokens very easily, take care of any problematic permanent your opponent could play with, and disenchants are not like running rampant back then. But now, these days, it's on a creature, and that the removal right now is so good. Like we have multiple types of lightning bolt type effects, whether it's Wizard's Lightning, Lightning Strike. Now the new one that has Spectacle. We have Lava Coil, and that's just red. When you get into black, there's an ultimate price. The Cast down, Vraska's Contempt. You're going to be able to unlock this pretty easily. Ravnica Chupacabra, things like that. So you have to find either a way to protect it or a reason for them not to kill it, and that could be a number of things. Like you have, things that trigger upon when your creatures die, or you have protection via dive down, or you just have ways to pump it up to 4 toughness, so it dodges a lot of these 3 damage things. And there's a number of ways you can do that, but now it's martial, whatever. So it's going to be interesting to try to leverage the body into something useful, but it's a challenge I think that people are more than willing to try out. And this card is clearly better than something like Fiend Hunter, which has seen play in the past. It's a lot more versatile. The fact that it can hit Planeswalkers is bananas, I think. So I think the real test is just figuring out the right home for it. Like the effect is obviously very good.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's not a card that you can just slot in without any thought and expect the card to perform really well because it is vulnerable. So you're really going to want to put in the work and figure out what shell it can go in where it either naturally has protection, which is why I really liked you trying it in this Jeskai deck, or like a way to utilize it more as a tempo card than a removal spell. So where when they kill it, like you're not really that concerned about it. You've gotten the value that you expected to get out of it. So maybe you play it as a card that you're expecting just to clear out like an early blocker and get your damage in an aggressive deck, things like that. So you have to understand the role the card is playing in your deck. If it's playing the removal spell role, then you need to protect it. If it's not playing the removal spell role and playing the tempo role, then you need to build your deck around it to take advantage of the tempo swing that it generates.
Yeah. All right. Let's field 2 questions, then we're going to take a break while we prepare for the next match.
All right. Excuse me. Jatch was curious, which XXYY uncommon is most impressive to you from this set?
We haven't really tested it out, but I really like the Rakdos one. Searing Blaze and Searing Blood, those type of effects have always really tickled my fancy. And this one attached to such a large body and still having such a
4/3, right?
So 4 mana, 4/3. The ETB's 2 to a target, and you can hit a Planeswalker too if you want to. So I think it's player / Planeswalker and a creature. So I'm a huge fan of that one. The Zorus one that flies and has like
Flying Vigilance and
Frost
spells
Titan
that target
ability?
it cost 2 more.
Yeah,
it's not exactly Frost Titan. They have to pay the 2 up front. Frost Titan, if they wanted to play the spell and let it get countered.
Yeah, this is a better design anyway. That was just like a gotcha type thing. So, I don't know. I like those 2 a lot. Do you have? I
think Sundering Mage could be good. Like the 5/5 body dodges Lava Coil, and there's a lot of arbitrary artifacts and enchantments you want to destroy. That's a main deckable card for an aggressive Gruul deck. And with Rhythm of the Wilds, give a haste. Player enchantment. I just dome you for 5 or like force you to chump block with something that valuable. So I could see that card seeing play. I do think the Rakdos one is underrated. I'm not sure exactly like where it fits. I know I played a Rakdos mid-range deck last week. Maybe it could find a home there, but now it's competing against Chupacabra. But I would have to put more thought into which one I think is certainly going to see play.
So I think the real trick for me is that if you're going to build an aggressive deck, we have obviously 8 stellar dual lands in the Czech lands, Dragon Skull Summit, Blood Crypt, but I think it's important as an aggressive deck, in order to be able to play 1-drops consistently on turn 1, you have to heavily slant towards one color. Whereas something like Crackling Drake or the Azorius one, you can actually just build your deck in such a way where you have almost an even number of islands and plains or islands and mountains, and still cast on turn 4 like a reasonable amount of time. But if you're slanting really hard an aggressive deck towards one or the other, casting on turn 4 is not easy. It becomes difficult. It incentivizes you to play Guildgate, and then that means your 1-drops are way worse, and sometimes your 2-drops are way worse because you have Guildgate and the Dragon Skull Summit. So they're contextually better based on their castability and the viability of the decks that they would slot into. And I think that it's important to look at these outside of a vacuum, because context is everything.
Yeah, so the less aggressive ones get better because the prohibitive mana cost becomes less of an issue.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
All right, Dan Pardo asked, do you think Esper will be where people slant their control decks because of Kaya's Wrath?
I think Esper is certainly a fine color combination. I think definitely Clarion for Jeskai is probably better than Kai's Wrath, just because the Wrath effect that you need comes a turn earlier and cleans up most of the same stuff. I think Kai's Wrath is very good. Don't get me wrong. I think Esper is 100% going to play some amount of them, if not 4. But I don't think that it will draw people away from Jeskai because you have you have equally strong options out of Jeskai that you do in Esper. Like, I just think Expansion Explosion is just phenomenal. Niv Mizzet, obviously, an all-star. And I'm going to need at least one more reason to play Esper over Jeskai than just Kai's Wrath, personally.
Well, you have Mortify too, with all these enchantments running around.
Yep.
You get to blow up Rhythm of the Wild and search for Escanta and
Experimental Frenzy,
yep. and all these things. So
you're definitely right on that.
That's another incentive to be Esper. I think Kai's Wrath is really good. Whether or not that makes it better than Jeskai, you also lose like Niv Mizzet, Expansion Explosion are just so powerful. What is the Esper deck killing you with? You get Teferi just like the Jeskai deck does, but
decking you with Teferi.
That ability to not have the card that just slams the game home once you're ahead on turns 5, 6, 7, 8 is a really big demerit in comparing Esper to Jeskai, and that's where I think they're going to have to make up ground.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's do one more. If you got another one.
Yeah. Do you think that Vanifer will be a player in Modern?
No.
Vanifer's the birthing pod one.
Yep.
Correct.
So
nope.
Here's the thing. This card is obviously strong. Like, if you get to untap with it, you should be able to do some pretty busted stuff. The problem is untapping with it. In Modern, either you're dying really quickly, or your opponent is interacting with you on a lot of different fronts. And the fact that it has 4 casting cost means, like, Fatal Push with Revolt kills it. A number of other removal spells can kill it. People can answer it. If you're able to give it haste easily, let's say Halve the Bandit Lord or something. Like, you can, if you're going to go hard, okay? This card, when you untap with it, will usually win the game in one way or another. Either you find the hate card that KOs the matchup, or you have a chain of creatures in your deck that allows you to win on one activation. That's the strength of this card alone. So I'm going to say that I think people will try it. They're going to find it underwhelming, but at some point it's going to settle into a spot where people find a Court of Calling deck that plays one of this and uses it to generate value over time, and has a couple other combos built in with it, like your Kitchen Finks with Malera, maybe your Devoted Druids with
Vizier of Remedies, Deceiver Exarch / Restoration Angel with Kiki Jiki.
Right. There's and you could do a number of things. I think it's just fine as a one of, though, in a Court of Calling deck, just if you have a decent chain. But as far as an entire deck being built around it, people will try, and I think they will fail. All right. Well, we're going to take a short break here while we prepare for match 2, which I believe, or do you know which one it is?
It is Rakdos Aggro versus Temur Reclamation.
That's what I was hoping for. All right, we're going to get to try out my Temur Reclamation strategy that I wrote my article about. Make sure to check out that article while we're doing this break if you want. Go to starcgames.com. Read up on what I think about Wilderness Reclamation. I think the card's insane. And let's see if Ross gives me enough time to actually get going, because his Rakdos deck is going to be pretty aggressive.
Yes.
Tough to see.
So we'll be back in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Take a 10-minute break. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.